Hey everybody, this is the man on fire, John Sablan of johnsablan.com, and I welcome you back to another segment of True Faith Real Talk, where we deal with real issues through the eyes of faith. Now today we're just going to get right into the segment because I have two very special guests with me. They are the founders of the Catholic Man Show. Now I happen to be Catholic and a man, and I actually got a show, so this actually fits. So I want to welcome to the show Adam and David. How are you guys doing out there in, is it Oklahoma?
Yep.
Yeah.
Living on Tulsa time.
Living
Doing
Town.
Awesome. Well, hey, I just wanted, I'm very happy to have you on the show. Again, all kidding aside, Catholic masculinity and manhood and the vocation of manhood is something that obviously is very near and dear to your heart. It's something very near and dear to my heart. In particular for the viewers who do know me and know my story, is just because I suffered from, a false sense of masculinity. So failed male leadership in my own life and upbringing, and how that affected and impacted my own ability to be a true man of God, and how I came back to the healing of all of that. So maybe you can give me, and my viewers an intro to, who you guys are, because I know this isn't your full-time job. How Catholic Man Show came about, what's the intent, what the focus is, and all of that.
Well, Adam and I run the Catholic radio station here in Tulsa. And so that's kind of, I think, a good starting point for how the show got off the air.
Got on the air.
Got on the air. Got off the ground.
Off the ground, on
off
the
the
air.
ground, into the air.
Right. Terrestrial radio.
We were just kind of doing some analysis of the shows. Mostly we run EWTN content, which is all great content. But EWTN does not have anything specifically targeted to men. They do have, like Women of Grace with Jonette Bankovic, which is, she's been on air for she's like a staple of Catholic radio. They've got a lot of really good stuff, but nothing that was specifically aimed at men. And so we just said, hey, let's start a show just for here in Tulsa. It's just going to air on our local radio station, that we can kind of have something to bolster the lineup. And we had been wanting to do a show for a long time just because we like attention, and we joke around that we want to get rich and famous, and so that's why we got into Catholic radio.
Awesome! Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good to know. My wife will be happy to hear that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot.
We haven't made it yet. We're still working on it. No, but yeah. So we decided to launch this show about 2 years ago, and like Dave said, we were just trying to get this idea of having younger men, typically like with young fathers, young families, to touch base with them, and so that's why we come up with Catholic Man Show. It's a really fun show. At least I have fun. I don't know about you or you guys, but I have fun.
We drink on every episode, so it's fun.
Yeah, this is something. So it's something new for you guys, right? You guys have drinks. I've just got some H2O. The only gear.
Yeah, we don't have it.
You don't have anything.
Yeah, we don't have one. Yeah, no, not right now. But so our show's based off of really kind of a men's group that we started, not that we started, that we were a part of.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the show consists of three things. Every episode, we open, review, and enjoy what we call a man beverage, which is typically a whiskey or a beer, while practicing and promoting the virtue of moderation and temperance. Mm-hmm. It's one thing in the society today is all about excess or completely abstaining, right? No GMO foods, or have sex with any woman you can,
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, it's one thing to talk about temperance and moderation. It's another thing to practice it and demonstrate it. Mm-hmm. So we open, review, and enjoy a man beverage. We highlight a man gear, and a gear is just anything that any guy should want, desire, need in his day-to-day life, whether it be a pocket knife, a rosary, a flamethrower. Dave had a flamethrower one episode.
Okay, what would we use a flamethrower for, though?
Okay,
John, you just have no idea the number of practical applications until you start carrying one with you when you go places.
And so then hopefully the idea is that the gear kind of bleeds into the topic. Like we highlight a virtue about that gear, and it bleeds into the topic, which is the last half of our show, which is just a man topic that we talk about. Anything from being a leader of the family to what it looks like to have holy leisure, to what the mass is supposed to look like with little kids, what else? What else, Dave?
Well, we try to focus the show around virtue and returning men to the idea of virtuous living,
Awesome.
to embracing the call to the difficult, because the virtuous life is a difficult life. But I think as men, we're made for that difficult struggle. You know, I mean, just look at a man's body; he's physically stronger. That's because he's made for work. He's made for labor. He's made for hard things. And so the same is true in the spiritual life. With that regard, women are also called to a rigorous spiritual life. But there's a unique calling, I think, for men when it comes to embracing the virtuous outward life, that is a public display of your behavior.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know, even biblically, when you think about when Adam was put into the garden, right, to till and to keep, that the Hebrew words are abad and shamar, and work in the form of service, and also to protect and defend. So if you look at who we are as biblical men, right, we're charged, our first charge was to serve, protect, and defend all of creation, and most definitely women and children, right? And I think, to your guys' point. Now let's pause for a second, because we're on the radio show piece of it, but what about who you guys are as men, the roles that you play? So you're both husbands, fathers. Help our viewers understand your role as kind of just normal everyday guys.
Sure. So I have been married to my beautiful, stunning bride since 2012. We have 3 children and 1 in heaven. We have 2 boys, 1 girl: Luke, Michael, Jude, Timothy, and Anna Faustina. And I work for a company that I'm a manufacturing rep, so I sell basically castings and forgings is what I do.
Okay.
And I'm a financial advisor. I like to joke that I give advice for a living. So you should really listen to what I have to say. Okay?
People pay him.
Right. They pay me for my thoughts. But I'm also a husband, a father. I have a shockingly gorgeous wife, who we will soon have 3 children. We have 2, and number 3 will be arriving at the end of June.
Wonderful.
So we're very, very excited about that. Adam and I, we have been best friends since kindergarten in high school.
Wow.
Kindergarten, not in high school, just kindergarten.
No, yeah. So we became best friends. We were best friends in kindergarten.
We did kindergarten several times.
Yeah. And our families grew up together. We grew up in the church together. We had Bible studies together as young kids. We went to high school together. We hung out in college. And we lived together after college, and now that we all both have families, we actually live across the street from each other.
Wow.
So it's true. All of it is true.
Wow. Okay, so are you guys both Cradle Catholics?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So would you say, okay, because I'm a revert to the faith, and my wife's a convert to the faith. And so we'll have to save that for a different show perhaps. But so you guys are both, so I'm technically speaking though, I'm from the island of Guam, so for those of you viewers out there who thought I was Latino, shame on you. I'm Pacific Islander. So Guam is a very Catholic island. So I was baptized literally 27 days after I was born, right? Mm-hmm. But I wasn't really raised in the faith, and there's a whole sense of that failed male leadership, and grew up in an alcoholic home and all of that. But for you guys, obviously that's a different story. So you guys have been you brought up in the faith, Cradle Catholics, and have been living the faith the whole time?
Well, not exactly. I mean, Adam and I both grew up in very Catholic households. We both had dads who were very dedicated family men, the kind of guys who were there spending time with us as kids growing up. I mean,
like dads that everybody wants to have.
Yeah, exactly. We both had fantastic dads, moms, parents, but we kind of a similar story in that in college we just stopped practicing our faith. It's not that we became anything else. I just know for me personally, I just kind of didn't care. My attitude is, I'll worry about that after college. I just want to have fun, and I don't want to be held back by any of these rules.
Yeah,
yeah.
We stopped
moral codes.
Yeah, we stopped worshiping the divine Trinity and started worshiping the me, myself, and I.
Oh, the Trinity.
Yeah,
the
Trinity.
The Trinity instead of the Trinity. Nice. Yes.
Right. Exactly. So then we moved in together after college. And it was at that time that Catholic radio kind of started the spark of getting us back into the faith and living together. And, the idea of this brotherhood that we kind of cultivated and pushing each other into the faith, we decided, one day I think I walked in or Dave walked into the room. We were sitting there probably playing video games or doing something. And one of us said, you know what we should do Sunday? We should go to Mass. How about go to Mass on Sunday?
Whoa.
And it was like this novel idea, like this like light bulb, like, yeah, maybe we should do that.
Far out, man.
Yeah. And so it was that kind of atmosphere that led us back into the faith, where we kind of started pushing each other. And Dave and I joke that, we don't have philosophy or theology degrees, but we have the theology degree of, the Catholic Answers theology degree, the
University of Catholic Answers.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're just kind of regular guys, but we love our faith. We went from being Catholic to love being Catholic.
Yeah.
Two totally different things, right? To just say you're Catholic and then love with all your being Catholic.
So let's go. All right. So that's a great little transition, because I think part of the issue with us as men, right? I'm generalizing to some degree, but I think part of the issue, I think we may experience it in our observation and even our own lived experience, right? Is that this lived faith, this, that fervor, that zeal, like you said, the love being Catholic, like I totally am all in when you say that. I'm like, absolutely. There's not a day that goes by. Today, now, whenever I say John BC, I mean before conversion. Okay, so when John BC wasn't this way. I was indifferent. I was disengaged. I was really a spiritual idiot. I didn't care. I wasn't leading my family. Today, it's like, oh man, I am so. Matter of fact, the name I go by is Man on Fire, right? So it's like I am so on fire for our faith, for our Lord, for the truth, beauty, and goodness of our faith. And like you, I'm working on my theology degree. So I'm a Catholic Answers theologian, right? Or
yeah, right.
But I'm self-study. There's things, and once you fall in love with it, it's like, man, you can't get enough of Scripture. You can't get enough of Mass. You can't get enough of the sacraments. You can't get enough of church doctrine. You can't get enough of church fathers. I mean, there's so many things that we can fill ourselves with, and it's amazing once you have that encounter, whatever that encounter is, and you fully surrender, right? How that exactly that transition that we went from, like these really just kind of these cafeteria Catholics, whatever you want to call them. Everybody has a different term for them, but that concept that you just said about loving your Catholic faith, what triggered it? I know you mentioned that point, Adam, about that one thing that said, hey, well, let's go to Mass. But was there an encounter? Was there your road to Damascus, if you will? Or was this kind of just a steady revisiting the faith that was always given to you at a young age?
Yeah, I think for me, apologetics played a big role in it. You always, everybody has a few weird memories from when they're a kid, and you kind of think, I have no idea why I remember so-and-so saying that one thing to me. But one of those things that I remember is that my dad at the dinner table or something, he looked at us and said, kids, nothing matters if you don't make it to heaven. And I remember like just seeing the look on his face, and he was like, oh man, he's serious about that. And that was really impressed upon me. And then later conversation with him, he talked about, look, the church is perfect in her teaching. She cannot teach anything in error. And I really remembered that. And even in college, when I stopped practicing, like I said, it's not that I didn't believe. I actually still believed everything that the church taught. I, like I said, just didn't care. I'll do that later. Lord, give me chastity, just not yet.
Not yet, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so studying those apologetics, especially through Catholic radio, that really stoked the flames for me in that, like, hey, this is true and we can prove it. We're not just taking things on faith. We're walking hand in hand with our brains and our hearts. Yeah. And, we're not separating the two, and that the faith is reasonable. And it's reasonable because God did make this world. He did make it a certain way. And it's only natural that, there would be all these things that would follow from that foundational truth. And so God, I think, really used that in me to, now I was going to church again. Now all of a sudden I was, accessing grace and the sacraments, and, it's just a total game changer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, the devil is really good at this game that he plays of dividing and conquering, and so he's really good at taking them in and separating them out and making them believe that they're on their own. They're they're struggling with this vice or this sin on their own, and no one else is doing it, and they feel very lonely and almost desperate. And it was a huge grace that Dave and I moved in together right after college, because we cultivated this friendship that had always been there, but it turned into more of a true brotherhood, because we truly cared about one another. And I think that's something that society just has failed to promote, and that's just having an authentic friendship, an authentic brotherhood that is desperate in our times, because we can tell.
Yeah.
I mean, men are just kind of cowering down by themselves day after day, and if you have your brother right there next to you saying like, no, you're made for greatness, you're made to get into that breach, go into the breach, let's go, come on, we got to get this going. It's just like a workout partner. Same thing with workout partner.
Sure, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, even obviously to a greater degree, and I think that friendship you're talking about, and it's actually where you guys, what you commented on one of the focuses of the show is virtue, right? That I think it was Aristotle that talked about the 3 different types of friendship, but the one that's rooted in virtue, right, which is outside of ourselves, and we're both focused on that. And same thing with our marriages, right? That the fact that we're both us and our spouses, that we're focusing on growing in holiness and ultimately to lead each other to heaven, and get our kids to heaven. That is true friendship, because it's something that's supernatural. It's obviously the transcendent idea of, okay, now we need God's grace acting within this friendship, this brotherhood, and of course accountability, right? And I think that's the problem. One of the things that I know you guys would agree with is this emasculation of us men, right? I shared this on numerous episodes where the media model of men is like Homer Simpson and Al Bundy and Charlie Sheen, right? And we're a bunch of womanizers, a bunch of buffoons. We can care less. We're totally disengaged. We're detached from anything. We're playing video game, all that stuff, and it's just like we've lost all concept of what it actually truly means to be men. And then now with this aggressive feminism movement, right, where there's this false understanding that for us to even get excited about being men, right, to even say that, right? Oh, you don't want to talk about masculinity? Whoa! It's like they're trying to have they're talking out of both sides of the mouth that we don't need you men, right? And we definitely don't need you men being men, right?
Right.
So there's that conflict that we're experiencing in our culture today.
No, yeah, I totally agree that the culture has just been poisoned, and we can fix it. It's not like it's totally irredeemable, but we can fix it in amongst ourselves first. Just about kind of having this brotherhood, creating a community around yourself. It doesn't have to be big. I mean, it's really, in fact, I think a small group is better when it comes to men. Every guy needs just a handful of brothers around him. Ideally, that you meet with every week. Adam and I are part of Tuesday. We get together every Tuesday morning. There's a handful of us, and that is just so important, because what Adam was saying. Otherwise, Satan will divide and conquer you, and you will lose that battle. Okay, that's not the way men were made to battle. We're made to fight side by side. Christ knew this, why he sent his disciples out 2 by 2. But the culture, it wants to blame men for the problems. Oh, it's this patriarchy, it's the aggression of men. This is why there's all these problems. It's a bunch of crap. There's been plenty of bad men out there who have mistreated others, and no doubt. But that's the problem is not masculinity. The problem was a few men, and we need to embrace. I think the more men embrace this true, strong male masculinity, like leader, then the more we will overcome these forces coming the other way, because people will see, actually, no, that's not right, because look at all these strong dudes over here, and they're not causing any problems. In fact, they're pretty awesome. Right.
Right. Yeah, you want to be countercultural, be Catholic.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. Right. I mean, I think about, the church that gets persecuted the most, even within obviously the Christian church, but the Catholic Church amongst the Christian church is the one that becomes like public enemy number one. And I think to myself, when, a good litmus test for all of us, if we go to, to the Gospel of John, when Jesus says, if the world hates you, remember it hated me first. if the world persecutes you, remember it persecuted me first. So, because if you were of the world would love its own, but you're not.
Right.
And I chose you out of the world, right? So I tell a lot of people, I'm like, well, who loves you and why? And who hates you and why? So if the world is all in love with you, and the culture just totally is just, drinking the Catholic Man Show Kool-Aid, then something we're doing on the Catholic Man Show, or something we're doing on True Faith, Real Talk, or how we're living out our, Catholicism, it still needs to be attractive, but holiness is attractive, right? When people actually
authentic.
Exactly, authentic holiness, and somebody who's can stand in the midst of this current, right, and hold firm to their faith, cling to the cross. And I think that's what is attractive, because everybody's getting the cognitive dissonance, right? That where the behavior and the thoughts of that behavior are completely at conflict with one another. So yeah, you want to stand out, and that's the other thing too. Is most people, right? They say they want to be unique, but then
they're all the same.
They're all the same. They spend their entire energy, emotion, life trying to blend in, and yet we were made to stand out.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Catholic Man Show a little bit more, and your guys' goal with that, because I think it's great to have a platform. So I agree with everything that you guys are saying in that sense of that community as well. And I think it's great that you guys are, you're not just preaching it, but you're living it, right? Like you're saying no. I mean, I'm part of a men's ministry myself. 3 years ago, I felt there was a need in my parish. And I went to my pastor and said, hey, we need to do something for the men, and I'm willing to do something about it. So 3 years later, we have 80 men meeting every week.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
wow, that is awesome.
Yeah,
that is sweet.
So it's really cool, because I run the one in the morning. My other co-founder of the ministry split and went to the evening session. And, I got guys there at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? And
awesome.
And we're just trying to grow in holiness. We're all imperfect, but we're all men, and we're just trying to really kind of, pick up the baton, if you will, on where most men have dropped it, right? And so and that includes ourselves, right? I know a lot of the men have abdicated their responsibilities, and a lot of men that come to these men's groups and these mornings or the evening sessions, come very vulnerable. Right, and there's a lot of regret, there's a lot of remorse. Thankfully, there's some of the younger men there that have younger families that have the opportunity to turn things around. But there's a lot of older men that don't have their children in their home anymore. Or maybe they're divorced now or separated. So these communities are really a place of encounter and of healing. So I noticed that on your guys' website, you also have a community for the Catholic Man Show, right? Can you talk a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah, let me tell you, man, when we first started this, we had no idea really what we were doing or what was going to really come of it. But it's been a huge blessing we have something called the Council of Man. And really what it is it's men who want to help support the Catholic Man Show. They donate $10 a month, and we send them a Catholic Man Show Glencairn glass, which here's one right here. Let me show the listeners right here. This is let's see if you can see it. This is a Catholic Man Show Glencairn glass. It's a whiskey glass made specifically for Scotch whiskey, but to nose and to taste little samples of the Scotch. So anyway, we send them one of those, and we're part of this. We give them extra content, and we have this Facebook group, this private Facebook group, and it's been a huge blessing to be able to meet these guys, because we have, I don't know, maybe 180 guys that are a part of this group, and they're all basically struggling. We're all struggling with the same things. We're all struggling with the same vices. We're all struggling with the same day-to-day lives of
we're all
busyness.
swimming up the same current that you were talking about.
And so to be able to meet these guys from all over the world, to be able to talk to them and to flesh out some of these problems that we're having together is awesome. We have priests on there. I mean, it's phenomenal. So we've kind of developed this small community. It's internet based, but you know what, John, what was really cool is this last year we had a Catholic Man Show camp out. Have you ever heard of Clear Creek Abbey?
Yes, yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay, so we had our camp out at Clear Creek.
Wow.
And so men from all over, actually, even men from your area flew down, and we had a camp out at Clear Creek. Hung out with, we went to Liturgy of the Hours with the monks, had dinner with the monks. We even cooked a full pig. It was awesome. That is legit. I mean, is that not legit? Like, you know,
That's totally legit.
Yeah, it was awesome. And we just had a camp out. And it was just it facilitated this brotherhood that we're trying to talk about right now.
But one thing about the show, I think that we have to mention.
Oh yeah, I went way off. I'm sorry.
Is that it comes with a warning. Okay.
Oh, good call.
Yeah. So I mean, I just don't want anybody to get hurt because we're dealing with very high levels of manliness on the show. And if you or anyone in the listening radius even is susceptible to high levels of manliness, the show will be harmful to your health. So, you know, we just our lawyers want us to give out the disclosure because
no one can sue us.
There was one guy who actually was listening and he died to self after listening for a long time and
became a new man, and
he was a new man and just
lived a virtuous life with his family.
Yeah.
So it was no longer him, but Christ who lived in him.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
It was crazy. So anyway, the warning is at the beginning of every show.
Yeah.
You know, it's awesome, but even the concept of virtue. Let's even go there, right? Like one of the things that is lost in our culture, right, is that moral framework, even the word virtue. Like, well, you know, because, hey, as long as you're good, man, right? I mean, your good is your good,
right.
My good's my good, your truth is your truth, and all that other stuff. But the focus of virtue, why is that important for us as men in particular, from your guys' perspective?
Well, to start off, the word virtue literally means that, like, the powers of man. Mm-hmm. The root word is vir, which is Greek?
Latin.
Greek? Latin. Yeah.
Latin.
Vir is man.
Yep.
Okay, so there is nothing more manly than virtue. Okay. It used to be well known. I mean, I think today the word virtue kind of is like, oh, it's for sissy boys, you know, like, oh yeah, goody two shoes, you know.
Or like the idea of it's just all priests.
Right. Yeah.
You know, all bishops and priests. They're all holy. But
yeah.
we can't do that. That's not something we're called to.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, that's just not the way it is. You know, when I think of a virtuous man, I think of the, you know, like a classic gentleman, not necessarily a priest. I mean, of course, you know, they would be virtuous too. But, you know, in that we need to restore just some of these great cultural things to our day-to-day life, you know, like manners.
Yeah.
Manners are totally, you know, it's like people walk around. This drives me crazy. They walk around with their heads down and their cell phones and it's like totally oblivious. Like, there's other people here. Did you even know that? Like, look, there's other people doing the same thing we're doing. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and so it's not just about living the moral life. I mean, obviously that's, you know, the most important thing, but being Catholic, it needs to flow out into every aspect of you know, our day-to-day life. You know, the idea of Catholic, you know, the word Catholic means universal. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, that means universal all around the world, but it also means universal within ourselves, as in there is no part of us that's not affected by being Catholic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, virtue is the definition is, you know, doing the habit of doing the good. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you can just all of a sudden become a virtuous man. This is a process, right? So you have to continue to develop these habits of living virtuously. It's not like you're going to walk in and just all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to start levitating now because I decided to follow Jesus Christ. You know, grace builds on nature, and you have to be able to continue to work on these graces. You know, St. Thomas Aquinas talks about effeminacy, and that word right there, you talk about a hot button word. Effeminacy is one of them, right? You know, masculinity is one, effeminacy is another one. Effeminacy, you know, is really the definition is the unwillingness to do the arduous for the sake of pleasure. You know, and that's very similar to sloth. Sloth is basically kind of the same word. It's just sloth is geared towards not wanting to do the arduous, and effeminacy is not willing to give up the sake of pleasure. And so men today have just been are very effeminate. They're effeminate men because they're not willing to do the hard. They're not willing to do the arduous. They're not willing to be virtuous men.
They're wearing skinny jeans, for Pete's sake.
What is going on? Why are we wearing skinny jeans? Like that's not something guys should wear. But
ridiculous.
It's just, anyway. But so it's this virtuous thing that we have to continue working on. You have to continue building upon it, and the only way you're going to do that is by practice. And so that's why it's so important to have this virtuous, to strive for this virtue, because it's not happening overnight. And the only way, and we've got to do it together. We have to do it together.
Yeah, I have this saying, holiness doesn't happen by accident, right? And I think that you have to be very intentional. And as Catholics, everything we do is intentional. When you think about the liturgy and the Mass, we don't often know that, but there's a reason why we do everything that we do in the liturgy, and there's a reason why we do things the way we do in the context of the Mass. But going back to the virtue concept, because I think most people can understand it when it comes to like sports, right? That they're willing to I mean, the ones that don't master self, the ones that don't train, don't do the grind, can't really do well in whatever particular sport that is. Same thing with the workplace. If you just go with this mediocre kind of mentality, well, yeah, you're just going to be a mediocre kind of person. So apply that to anything else. But when it comes to the spiritual life and morality, hey man, it's hands off. We don't want to have to work on that. We don't want any rules, any regulations, any constraints. But everything else we do, we demand. Right. So imagine if it's like you show, exactly. Demand excellence. We demand that people follow the rules. We demand that people work hard. If somebody shows up on a basketball court and they've got 7 players on the court, they'll be like, this is the way that I choose to do it at home. It's like, no, dude, we only play with 5. Right. That's not
play by the rules.
Exactly.
We play by the rules, or else the game is not the game anymore. It's just interesting, right? As creatures, that we just say, when it comes to the morality, I don't want anything to do with any of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good example, with the athlete, like an Olympian. It's not just, if you want to be Olympian, you got to go running. You got to get in shape. No, it's not about that. It's about your whole life. That means you're not going out drinking with your buddies on Saturday. That you're not going to eat that piece of cake when it's Janice's birthday right down the hall. And doesn't matter how good that piece of cake looks, you're not going to eat it. It's still that idea of it's a universal application to your life. It's everything, and we have to be willing to, if we want to be winners, we have to be willing to put in the effort, to put in the work.
Right. And people have so much made prayer look effeminate, right? Because women by their very nature are very holy people. I think that they get, more grace than probably men just to be holy. I mean, they're just very holy women. I mean, women are amazing. I'm a big fan of women.
I'd like to second that.
Yeah. I third that.
Yeah. Third. Okay. So we're all on the same page there. But you know what? Prayer is hard, right? Go sit on your knees or kneel on your knees in front of the Blessed Sacrament for an hour. Yeah. It's not easy. Yeah. And stay focused on who's in front of you. That's not easy. I sit here, I look at my dog, right, and I have this treat, and I show this treat to my dog, and my dog does not look at anything else. Nothing else exists except for that treat. I mean, I could, sirens could be going off, kids could be running by, but my dog is completely focused on this treat. Nothing else matters. And if I could have that same attention when I'm in adoration, that'd be phenomenal, because it's not easy to do. It's not something that comes, I think, natural for us at times, and so you have to work at it. Prayer is something you have to work at, and if you don't have it, then you're not going to grow in your spirit. You're not growing in your spiritual life.
Yeah, it's actually, I think the Catechism puts it, it's actually necessary for your salvation, right? When we talk about prayer and discipleship and the connection between the two. But I think it's good that you guys even unpack that, and us talking about it now, and I imagine you guys talk about it on your show, because I think men, sometimes it's the easy way out, right? Well, see, I lose focus when I pray, so why pray? I really don't feel it when I go to Mass, or I don't get anything out of Mass, or whatever, and then it's a cop-out. Right, that of course we live in a world now that it's really all about your emotions, that emotions trump reality and truth and all of that. And when we're saying no, like all of us men do struggle with similar things, some more, some less. I agree with you 100%, Adam, that I think women are just naturally the way that they were designed, God created them. They're just more open to being vulnerable, more open and receptive to God and what He has to say. Whereas, we're a bunch of knuckleheads. I have this saying that, God is a divine potter. He prefers to work with clay, but He often deals with bricks, right? Because, and he'll work with bricks. It's just it's gonna take a different set of tools, right? He's not gonna massage you with the hands. He's just gonna pop you over the head and crush that thing, right? So, but I think
great.
Yeah,
I love that.
But for us as men, I think we need to help encourage each other about that and say, hey, realize that it's a struggle. And I'm going to say women would probably agree with that too. But for us men, if you think you're going to go into adoration for an hour. And we can even get into the sacraments in a bit here, but I think adoration is a game changer, and all men will find their lives being 100% completely changed if you just frequent the sacrament, the Blessed Sacrament, adoration. But to sit there, like you said, I have a designated holy hour. We have perpetual adoration at my parish, and so my holy hour is Friday morning at 3:00 in the morning. Okay.
Woo.
Yeah. It's a powerful hour. But you could be there and you're fighting sleep because maybe I didn't get to bed till 11 o'clock that evening, so I got up at 2:30, and you're fighting all this other stuff, and you hear weird things going on at 3:00 in the morning. I mean, there's all of those things, but like you said, trying to be laser focused, and it's like as if men don't make that an excuse because we all struggle with it, But go through the mental gymnastics if you have to. That's why I think the Rosary, right? The Rosary is an instrument of meditation to get us into that place, where we're actually more open and more focused and more aware of the presence of God. But let's talk about prayer life since we're there already. And what do you guys recommend to the viewers out there in growing in virtue as it relates to prayer in particular? Because I know there's going to be a lot of men that are out there watching as well, who maybe struggle with prayer, maybe struggle with understanding the importance of the sacraments in themselves. Anything you guys have to offer as far as tidbits of wisdom there?
Sure. Yeah. So there's two types of prayer. There's what I would divide up into two types of prayer. There's structured, planned prayer, and then there's spontaneous, just throughout the day prayer. Mm-hmm. You got to start with a structure. Okay. You have to pray. Father Larry Richards, I've heard him say, look, you either pray every day or you go to hell. And I'm not sure if he was being,
that's Father Larry for you.
Over exaggerating.
Yeah, he was just being Father Larry.
Yeah. He did say it, okay? So, if you want to have the virtue of a good prayer life, it's not just going to happen by accident, like you said. You have to do it. So you need to sit down and decide, when are you going to pray? Mm-hmm. A good time to pray is first thing in the morning. Get up and pray. And you don't have to pray for very long, I mean, even just a few minutes in the beginning. And even if you want to say, this is what I'm going to pray. So I have morning prayers that I say. Some people will actually get up and say morning prayer from the divine office. Mm-hmm. But you have to structure it. So you should have a morning prayer and an evening prayer. If you're married, at least one of those needs to be with your wife, mm-hmm. and your kids. And once you develop the habit or the virtue of prayer, then you will find it, not only that it comes easier, but that you will begin to enjoy it.
And yearn for it.
Right. And, when you go to bed and you'll have this feeling like something is not right. Oh, I didn't pray the Rosary today, and
yeah, I mean, as a business guy, right, you always have you segregate your time out. In the morning, I'm going to be checking my emails, and then I have a conference call in the afternoon, and then I have to go follow up with this customer here. And so you have your whole day scheduled out as a business guy. You have to have the same thing with your prayer life. Like Dave said, in the morning, make sure that you have your morning prayer. And then at noon, make sure, like Dave started this, I thought this was a great idea, and I've tried to pick up on it, but have an examination of conscience at noon. Figure out, where have I fallen off the scale from the time I woke up till noon today? What have I lacked in? Okay, and then at 3 p.m. I have an alarm set on my phone every single day at 3 p.m. that goes off to make sure that if I can't pray the full divine mercy, that I at least stop for a moment of what I'm doing and realize that our Savior, the creator of the universe, died at this time for me. Mm-hmm. And that, it doesn't have to be a long one. It doesn't have to be a long prayer. Divine mercy takes all of 5 minutes.
I know.
Of 5 minutes. So, I mean, and then, at night, make sure you're praying, before meals with your family. After dinner, we try to have a family rosary if possible. Here's a great tip. Somebody told me this. I think it's a phenomenal tip. Anybody have those big, those big wall rosaries?
Yeah.
You have little kids,
yeah.
Right? So, to pray the rosary as a family together, grab that wall rosary, and whoever's turn it is to lead the decade, they get to have that wall rosary. They get to hold the wall rosary, and so like the little kids feel like that they're a part of this. That this is something special, and that they're now in charge. They get to lead this decade of the rosary, and they take ownership of it. So I think it's a great idea. It's worked with my family. And I highly suggest that. And then at the end of the night, Haley and I pray a specific set of prayers together to have grace for marriage, that we love each other more, that we yearn for Christ more, and then we have a special good night prayer to Mary. And that's what we do.
And I just want to say this to the men out there. You, if you're married, if you have a family, you have an obligation to this family of yours. You have an obligation to your wife because of the order of authority. Things start with you, okay? Mm-hmm. Satan's got to get through you before he gets to your family, before he gets to your kids. If you are not praying every day for them, you are letting them down. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth, and we're not here to sugarcoat the truth for you. You owe it to them. So you better be praying for them every day. Mm-hmm. If you're not, start. Yeah. It's a great time to start.
Time to start. And bless your children right before they go to bed. I always bless my kids. Very super easy. Maybe awkward at first. Sometimes, when it was awkward for me at the very beginning to bless my wife and bless my kids because it's just kind of a weird thing to do. It's not natural, especially for guys. Mm-hmm. Super easy. May Almighty God bless you and keep you. May you always stay in the protection of our Heavenly Mother. Amen.
Yeah.
That was, 5 seconds?
Yeah.
It took me 5 seconds.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the ways that we're tempted as men is that awkward feeling of really being humble and it really extending mercy, right? And being that image of our Heavenly Father is we've all done. I mean, I came into the faith later into my adulthood, and then my kids were older. So when I was doing the blessing, I had, my 2 boys, especially. I've got a daughter and 2 sons. My daughter's the oldest, and these are big boys, right? So it's like, come here, Dad's gonna bless you, and it's kind of like, but it didn't matter,
right?
But in the end, these kids know that you love them enough, right, to humble yourself enough to give that to them. I mean, my kids are older than what most people think they are, in the sense, because I know I look like I'm 25, y'all. But I've got 2 adult children. Right? My youngest is gonna be 18 in June, right? And so so my wife and I we're not rookies on the block when it comes to marriage or parenting or the faith, and having that struggle of trying to incorporate things even when we thought it may have been too late. And so for the men out there, and for the wives and the women out there, that when you think it's too late, they're already 13, they're already in high school. It's like it's never too late. It's never too late for us to own up to our mistakes, to our failures, to our shortcomings, and it's never too late to introduce them into an encounter with God through sacramentals, through prayer, through our own asking for mercy. And so I think those are all great examples. And Dave, I appreciate that zeal and that fervor, because my viewers know, I don't sugarcoat anything. Like if I had somebody willing to slap the Jesus into me and just tell me like, hey man, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And instead of saying like, it is your obligation. I think one of my favorite quotes from Pope St. John Paul II is, it is the obligation of every man to uphold the dignity of every woman. Right? And we
Amen.
And we think about our role and our kids to be able to see that, and our women. And women to see other men poke other men in the chest and say, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And so I think, true charity, of course, in all humility, but it doesn't mean that we can't be passionate about something, because you're speaking from a place of love. And I think about us as fathers, right? When we discipline our children, of course, if we're doing it for the right reasons, if we're truly trying to teach them, show them better, that should be coming from a place of love. And, And I think,
I totally agree.
Yeah, and I think for us as men and us as fathers, as husbands especially, that we need to be able to demonstrate that first and foremost. One of the things I asked, for just to kind of share with you guys and the viewers out there, one of the most powerful conversations I had with my middle son, my oldest son, was, hey, as a father, I'm always, you're always, as a parent, you're always worried about kids losing the faith, and are you going to veer off? The mistakes you made, are you going to suffer because of those? And just had a really great dialogue. But one of the things he told me, he says, Dad, first and foremost, live the faith. Just live it. And let us catch you living it. And then if we have a relationship with you, and if we respect you, and if we love you, well, we're going to want to live the faith too. We're going to want to do what Dad does. And I think a lot of men out there in particular, and I think women know this and all too well, because of some of the fractures in our family and the destruction of the family in today's culture. But men need to hear just how important we are, right? How valuable we are, like it or not. like it or not, that you will affect, influence, and impact everything about your children's lives and even your wives' lives as it relates to having any resemblance of any kind of faith or hope at all in their adolescence or their adulthood.
Yeah, and John, I think that it's important to remember that, and I think you'd probably agree with me that if you are just deciding like, nope, today I'm going to be a different man, today I'm going to live my faith, it is going to be uncomfortable. It is going to be awkward, right? But the whole sign of our faith is uncomfort. You better get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because the crucifix is not something of comfort. It is a torture device that our Lord Jesus Christ suffered on and rose from the dead, so that way we can continue building up the kingdom. And so if you are just now getting into it, know that I feel you. I know that it's going to be awkward. And John, I'm sure you know there's so many awkward times to lead the family in prayer, to decide to bless your children, when you maybe you haven't in years, or to take your family to confession once a month, even though it's going to be kind of awkward. It's going to be a weird thing. But guess what? We're called to do that. Christ said, take up your cross and follow me. And the cross is not comfortable. So get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's right. And you don't grow in holiness unless you're uncomfortable. Right?
That's right.
That's bottom line. Unless you are somehow thrown out of your comfort zone, that there is no growth in that. Then you just kind of, you're really not growing at all. You're just kind of standing still, and standing still really means you're sliding back. Right? You're really sliding back.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you.
So, gentlemen, how does everybody find out about what you guys do? Is it podcast? Do they can subscribe to you guys? Is it something that it's a weekly thing? Is it a monthly thing? What details about the show can the viewers out there look forward to?
Yeah, so it's a weekly show. It is available on the podcast. I think that's probably how most people listen to it. We go to our website. You can find out more information, thecatholicmanshow.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram.
All the silly social media platforms that are out there.
All those places. Where the podcast is available on iTunes and Google Play. Mm-hmm. All of the Stitcher. It's on all of the podcast things.
Right.
So what's up and coming new for the Catholic Man Show? You talked about you had the camp out. What are some of the events that you guys have in store and upcoming in 2018?
So it's really funny because right before 2018 started, Dave and I promised our wives that, because like you said, that we're not doing this full time. Like this is kind of our side gig, right? Mm-hmm. And so we promised our wives that it's a
free side gig.
It's a free, we're not making any money on this.
Right.
So we told our wives, like, we would only go to 2 men's conferences this year if we were asked to be a part of it. Not including the Oklahoma Men's Conference, because we've been going to it forever. So we said only 2, because it takes a lot of, it takes a lot of time out of family time and effort to go and be a speaker. In fact, we were speakers with Deacon Harold Burke Sivers at the Wichita Men's Conference not too long ago.
Awesome.
But long story short, by end of February, we'd already been to 2 men's conferences. So we basically have kind of put the kibosh on any more men's conferences or anything like that for this year. But we've already been confirmed that we're going to be a part of the E6 men's conference in Indiana next year, and we have the camp out in October.
We're going to do the camp out again this year. It's going to be big.
Epic.
It's going to be bigger and better.
It's going to be epic. Is really what it's going to be.
Our budget's a little bigger this year, so
it's going to be epic.
It's going to be awesome.
So what I heard there is you guys have one more slot left for a men's conference for the upcoming year, right?
For
2019.
For 2019, we have one more slot. Yeah, we have one more available.
So for those of you out here who are event coordinators,
yes. Hit us up.
You better get on it. Yeah, you better get on it. Well, hey, gentlemen, I really do appreciate the time. I know we're both taking time away from our families, being able to do this, but I think it's well worth the effort and the sacrifice. And thanks to both your wives and my wife as well, and our families for sharing a piece of us for the viewers out there. And I hope that the men out there definitely visit the Catholic Man Show at the very least to just kind of see what Adam and Dave got going on there and all the lives that are being touched there, and just having a fellowship and a community. That way we can all build each other up and hold each other accountable. So gentlemen, I just want to thank you for all the work you're doing out there. I know it's not easy. And I know it takes a lot of sacrifice. But hey, I will tell you that I'm inspired just by this opportunity to chat with you guys. I really am grateful for you being on the show. I'm inspired by your desire and your sacrifice to help us men be holy men of God and help provide some examples, but also accountability. So I will continue to pray for you and for your ministry and for your families. I ask that you would kindly do the same for us and the viewers out there. And
Amen.
just want to wish you guys a blessed rest of 2018. And for all the viewers out there, go out and visit thecatholicmanshow.com. And until the next episode of Truth, Faith, Real Talk, get holy or die trying. God bless.